I used to think my life was steady, predictable, even a little boring. I'm the kind of guy who sticks to routines. Same coffee every morning, same 10-minute drive to work, same Thursday night takeout with my wife. My name's Carson, I'm 36, and up until a few months ago, I would have told you I was happily married. We lived in a quiet cul-de-sac in a suburb just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm a software consultant who works remotely most days. Not glamorous, but it pays well and gives me time to do things around the house, projects, chores, whatever. My wife, Erin, is 34. She's always been more of a social butterfly, flitting from friend group to friend group, trying out new hobbies, jumping into little passion projects. Yoga one month, baking the next, then photography. She was charming, spontaneous, a little chaotic, and I like that about her. At least, I used to. We've been married for 6 years. Together for 8. No kids yet, though we talked about it. She wanted to wait until she felt more grounded. I didn't push. I figured we had time. I'd bought the house with the idea that it would become our family home one day. 3 bedrooms, fenced yard, a little shed I'd turned into a workshop. Erin loved the space, loved decorating. She had an eye for color and always joked that if she weren't in marketing, she'd be an interior designer. But over the last year, something shifted. Nothing explosive. No screaming fights, no big betrayals, at least not yet. It was more like erosion. Subtle, slow. She started coming home later. Said she was grabbing drinks with coworkers more often. She'd stay glued to her phone during our dinners, thumb hovering over her screen like she was waiting for a text. And when I asked if everything was okay, she'd brush it off with a tight smile and a quick, "I'm just tired." Work's been draining. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But in the pit of my stomach, something didn't feel right. Then came the new neighbor. He moved in across the street mid-spring. Tall guy, probably in his late 30s, early 40s. Built like he played college ball back in the day. Drove a black Range Rover. Always wore gym clothes even when he wasn't headed to the gym. Name was Bryce. I remember because Erin made a big deal about introducing herself to him the day he arrived. Brought over banana bread, of all things. She never baked before, but suddenly she was whipping up homemade loaves like she was auditioning for a Food Network show. I didn't think much of it at first. Erin was friendly with most of the neighbors. She was just being neighborly, right? But then I started noticing things. She'd linger by the window in the evenings, casually mention Bryce when we were talking about our day. "Oh, Bryce said he just got back from a hiking trip in Asheville. Sounds amazing." Or, "Bryce recommended this new Thai place. Maybe we should check it out sometime." She started dressing differently, too. Less oversized sweaters and leggings, more tight jeans, low-cut tops, little touches of makeup even when she was just running errands. Still, I told myself it was in my head, that I was being paranoid, insecure, but the feeling kept building, like a pressure behind my ribs I couldn't shake. Then, one night in June, everything cracked open. It was a Thursday. I remember because we always got Chinese takeout on Thursdays. I'd picked up the food, set it out on the dining table, and waited. Erin came home an hour late, wearing a dress I hadn't seen before. Short, red. Her lipstick was still fresh. She looked flushed, like she'd been running or maybe laughing too hard. She didn't sit down right away, just stood by the counter, twisting her hands together. "Carson," she said, not meeting my eyes. "I think I need some time." My mouth went dry. "Time for what?" She finally looked at me then. "Time to figure things out. To figure myself out. I feel like I've been living someone else's life. I don't know who I am anymore." The words hit like a slap, but I kept my voice steady. "What are you saying, Erin?" "I think I need space. Maybe a month. Maybe more. I'm not leaving forever. I just need a break. To breathe. To think." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I nodded slowly, numb, my mind racing. I asked where she was going. She said she'd figure it out. A hotel, maybe. She just needed time. But less than 48 hours later, I found out exactly where she went. Bryce's driveway. His black Range Rover parked beside Erin's car. Her overnight bag slung over her shoulder as she let herself in through his side door like it was already familiar. Like she belonged there. I stood at our window across the street, watching. Frozen. Chest tight. All the little signs I'd ignored suddenly connected like a jigsaw puzzle snapping into place. The banana bread. The makeup. The late nights. The way she looked at him when they crossed paths. She hadn't needed time. She needed a soft landing. The worst part? She didn't even try to hide it. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. For weeks. I'd like to say I handled it with grace. That I threw myself into work or hit the gym or leaned on friends. But the truth is, I unraveled. Slowly. Quietly. I went through the motions, told my clients everything was fine, nodded at concerned texts from my sister, Mia. I didn't sleep much. I barely ate. I just sat in the house I thought we'd raise a family in and stared at the empty spot across the bed, wondering how I'd missed the signs. A month passed. 32 days, to be exact. And then, on a humid Sunday morning, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Erin standing there. No makeup, hair tied back in a messy bun. Her eyes red and puffy. She clutched a crumpled tissue in one hand and whispered my name like it was a prayer. "Carson," she said, voice cracking. "I'm so sorry. I made a huge mistake." I stood there, staring at her. The woman who tore out my heart, now looking at me like I was supposed to be her savior. Like I'd just press rewind and pretend none of it happened. But something had shifted in me. Because over the past few weeks, I'd been doing more than just grieving. I'd been watching, listening, learning things. Things Erin didn't know I knew. Things Bryce definitely didn't want me to know. And I wasn't about to let either of them walk away without consequences. But I didn't say any of that. Not yet. I just opened the door a little wider and said, "Come in." And that's when everything really started to unravel. She stepped inside like she still belonged there. Barefoot, damp eyes, holding onto that tissue like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. I didn't move to hug her. Didn't say a word. Just watched her quietly as she walked into the living room and sank onto the couch we picked out together 2 summers ago. The same one we used to cuddle on during movie nights, where she once dozed off on my shoulder with popcorn in her lap, and our future still intact. But that future had been shattered, and she shattered it. Erin looked around like she expected things to be different. I hadn't changed anything since she left. Her coffee mug was still in the cabinet. Her cardigan still draped over the armchair. Her framed alive, laugh, love sign still hung above the entryway, though I'd seriously debated smashing that one during week 2. She sniffled and glanced at me. "I didn't think you'd even open the door." I stayed standing. Neither did I. There was a long pause. Then she took a deep breath and started talking. All at once. Like she'd been rehearsing it. I thought I needed space. I thought I was confused. But it wasn't real, Carson. That thing with Bryce, it was stupid. Impulsive. It didn't mean anything. I thought I was missing out on something, but the truth is, I lost myself. I lost you. I tilted my head. And you found all that out in a month? Her lip trembled. I made a mistake. That word again. Mistake. Like she accidentally grabbed the wrong cereal off a grocery shelf. You moved in with him, Erin. I didn't move in, she said quickly. I stayed there for a while. Yes, but it wasn't like that. It wasn't. You slept with him. She looked away. That was all the answer I needed. I didn't yell. Didn't throw anything. But inside, something caved. Some wall I didn't realize I'd been holding up. "I'm not asking to come back today," she whispered. "I just want to talk. Maybe see if there's still something here. If we can fix it." There was a time when that would have wrecked me. When I would have folded right there. But something had changed. Maybe it was the sleepless nights. Maybe it was the quiet fury I carried like a second skin. Maybe it was everything I discovered about her, about Bryce, and about how deep the betrayal really went. I nodded slowly. "All right. Talk." So she did. She told me Bryce had changed. Said he wasn't who she thought he was. That after a week of flirty freedom and spontaneous dinners, he got cold. Possessive. That he wasn't interested in her dreams or her finding herself. Just the thrill of taking someone else's wife. He never called her his girlfriend. Never introduced her to anyone. And last week, when she asked him what they were doing, he apparently laughed and said, "You're a good time, Erin. Let's not ruin it with feelings." And just like that, she said, she realized what she'd thrown away. That I was the one who always supported her, the one who listened to her rant about coworkers, the one who remembered her tea preference and rubbed her back when her anxiety spiked. That I was her home. "I miss you," she said finally. "I miss us." There were tears streaming down her cheeks now. Real ones. And for a flicker of a moment, I almost felt something stir. Pity maybe. Or nostalgia. But then my phone buzzed on the counter. And I remembered exactly why I couldn't trust her again. Because during that month she spent finding herself, She didn't just ghost me. She turned my own family against me. It started with my mom. A week after Aaron left, my mother called. Said she'd heard from Aaron. That she was concerned for my emotional well-being and wanted my family to check in on me. At first, I appreciated it. But then I started noticing the tone of their messages. My sister Mia texting, "You should have listened to her when she said she was unhappy." My cousin Rachel DMing me on Instagram with, "Marriage is a two-way street, Carson." What the hell was Aaron telling them? I didn't confront her about it then. I wanted to know more. So I called Mia and played dumb. Asked her what Aaron had said. She didn't go into detail, Mia replied. Just that she felt emotionally abandoned. That you'd grown cold. Controlling, even. That you never supported her dreams. She said she felt invisible. I nearly dropped the phone. Controlling? Me? I'd spent years being her emotional rock. Encouraging her career switches. Funding her pottery class. Letting her redesign the whole downstairs while I slept on a twin mattress during the renovations. And now I was the villain? It didn't stop there. My mom, sweet, traditional, always the peacemaker mom, actually suggested I apologize. She said I should take some accountability and open my heart. That's when it hit me. Erin wasn't just looking for space. She was laying the groundwork, planting seeds, rewriting the story. I wasn't the heartbroken husband she'd betrayed. I was the emotionally distant man who drove his wife into another man's arms. And the worst part? They bought it. They all bought it. Because Erin knew how to play people. She knew how to cry just the right amount. How to twist half-truths into sympathy. She didn't say I hit her. Didn't say I cheated. But she painted the picture just gray enough that people filled in the blanks. So now, as she sat there crying on my couch, I saw her clearly for the first time. Not the spontaneous, fun-loving woman I married, but the manipulative, calculating person she became. And I wasn't the only one she lied to. Because I'd been talking to Bryce, too. Not directly, he'd never respond to me, but I'd befriended his ex, a woman named Lila. Found her through a mutual on Facebook. Turns out she lived in Florida now, but she used to live with Bryce back in Atlanta. Long-term relationship. Left him 2 years ago. I sent a polite message asking if she'd be willing to chat about him. She responded within an hour. And oh boy, did she have stories. Bryce had a pattern. Charming. Flirtatious. Draws women in with that alpha confidence. But once he has them, emotionally distant. Cold. Uses them until he's bored. Then ghosts. He'd cheated on Lila 3 times. Same pattern. Women in relationships. Women with kids. He liked the thrill of the chase, the power of taking something that wasn't his. And Erin was just his latest trophy. Lila even sent screenshots, old messages, photos, a voice memo of Bryce bragging to his friend about stealing another man's wife. That voice memo, I saved it. And I waited. I wanted Erin to come crawling back. I wanted her to ask for forgiveness. Because I wasn't going to scream or throw things. I was going to build something better. Something slower. Smarter. And I'd already started. While she was staying at Bryce's, I'd met with a divorce attorney. Quietly. Privately. Set up accounts. Pulled copies of financials. Erin didn't know it, but our joint account had been slowly drained, legally, into a trust under my name. I'd also had cameras installed. New locks. Security updates. And, after confirming Erin wasn't on the deed, I'd had her removed from all utility accounts. This was no longer her home. It was mine. But I wasn't done yet. Because the betrayal wasn't just about Bryce. Or the lies. It was about the erosion. The way she'd made me feel small in my own life. Like I wasn't enough. And I was about to show her exactly how wrong she was. But first, I had to play along. So I handed her a glass of water and sat beside her. What do you want from me, Erin? She wiped her nose. A chance. To talk. To maybe start fresh. Okay, I said. And I smiled. Not out of warmth. But because I'd already planned the moment where that smile would vanish from her face. And that moment was getting very, very close. They say rock bottom isn't a moment. It's a realization. A quiet, soul-deep understanding that no one's coming to save you. That you've been walking around with a fire in your chest and no one noticed you were burning. That realization hit me on a Tuesday afternoon. Erin had come by the house 3 more times since that first conversation. She never stayed long. Just enough to drop little hints that she was healing, that she was trying, that she was grateful I wasn't pushing her away. She had no idea I'd already changed the locks. The only reason she still had access was because I let her think she did. She didn't notice that our finances were slowly separating, that her name was vanishing off accounts, that I'd rerouted all important mail to my sister's address, that I'd backed up every message, every email, every photo she'd taken with Bryce that she'd foolishly stored in the cloud we once shared. She also didn't know that I'd stopped wearing my wedding ring 2 weeks before she knocked on my door. But back to that Tuesday. It was late, almost 5 p.m. I'd just finished a Zoom call with a difficult client when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. "You need to fix this, Carson. She's hurting. You're being cruel." Cruel. That word cut deeper than I expected. I hadn't told my parents the truth, not yet. I was still holding the cards close to my chest, letting Erin spin her version of the story while I gathered evidence, receipts, and resilience. But that word, cruel, felt like betrayal all over again, like being kicked while I was already lying in the dirt. I sat there in my office, staring at the screen, heart pounding in my ears. The walls felt like they were closing in. For a minute, I forgot how to breathe. Everything just felt hollow, like the world had kept moving and I was frozen in place. And that's when I realized something. I had lost myself too, not just because of Erin's lies, not because of Bryce or the rumors or the pitying looks from neighbors. I lost myself because I'd built my entire life around being dependable, the steady one, the quiet one, the fixer, and I'd done it so well that when I finally broke, no one believed I could. Not even me. So I made a decision that night. I was done waiting. I was done surviving. I was going to rebuild. Quietly. Ruthlessly. Not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. I started with the house. I cleared out every last trace of Erin. Her books. Her artwork. Her throw pillows that didn't match anything but somehow tied the room together. I packed them into boxes and stored them in the garage. Didn't throw them out, yet. Just moved them far enough that they no longer occupied my space. My mind. Then I turned to the bedroom. That was the hardest. The sheets still smelled like her. I stripped the bed and tossed everything. Ordered new linens. A new comforter. Even a new mattress. It felt stupidly symbolic, but I needed a place that didn't feel haunted. Next came the walls. I painted over the soft gray Erin had picked with a bold navy blue. Something I never would have chosen before. But now, it felt powerful. Masculine. Mine. I set up my home office properly for the first time, added a second monitor, bought a standing desk, upgraded my chair. I wasn't just reclaiming space. I was reclaiming time, energy, purpose. Then I hit the gym. First week was brutal. My body ached in ways I didn't know it could, but the pain felt honest, real. And unlike everything else in my life, it didn't lie to me. I'd show up at 6 a.m. every day. No excuses. Headphones in. Put up. I didn't talk to anyone. Just lifted, sweated, pushed through. By the third week, something shifted. My chest looked fuller. My face a little leaner. I caught myself in the mirror one day and didn't flinch. And the best part? I didn't post any of it online. No cryptic captions. No gym selfies. No healing era declarations. Just quiet progress. While I rebuilt physically, I also worked on the mental side. I booked a therapist. A guy named Ron, mid-50s, ex-military. Straight shooter. No fluff. Just deep questions and hard truths. One session, he asked me, "What do you think you deserve, Carson?" And I couldn't answer. That silence haunted me for days. So I made a list. Not on my phone. Not in a Google document. On paper. Things I deserve. To be chosen first. To be believed. To feel safe in my own home. To be loved without manipulation. To be seen, not just used. I read that list every morning. Sometimes out loud. Sometimes through gritted teeth. Sometimes with tears in my eyes. But I read it. Over and over. Until I believed it. Financially, I was thriving. With Erin gone, my expenses were lower. I landed 2 new clients through referrals. Work gave me structure, control. I threw myself into projects, into solving problems that didn't talk back or cry on my couch. Mia, my sister, started noticing the change. She invited me over for dinner one night. Just her wife Tasha, and their dog Milo. We hadn't talked about Erin much. Mia had believed her at first, but she'd started asking questions. "Something's not adding up," she said over spaghetti. "What do you mean?" She said you were cold. "But you're you." I shrugged. She said you controlled everything. "But I've known you for 30 years. You'd rather crawl through glass than make someone uncomfortable." I didn't say anything. Just nodded. Mia leaned forward. "What really happened, Carson?" So I told her. Everything. Bryce. The move-in. The lies. The messages. The manipulation. I showed her the screenshots, the voice memo from Lila, the bank transfers, the divorce papers quietly waiting for my signature. Mia sat there in stunned silence. Holy crap, she whispered. I didn't want to tell anyone until I had proof. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. That moment broke something in me, but not in a bad way. It broke the silence, the loneliness, the feeling of screaming underwater while everyone walked by on the shore. After that, everything started to shift. Mia became my anchor. Tasha offered to connect me with a real estate attorney she knew, just in case things got messy. They even helped me rewrite my will, something I hadn't updated since we got married. It felt good, empowering. Aaron, meanwhile, kept circling back, like a moth to a flame that no longer burned for her. She'd text late at night. Emojis. Old photos. Remember this? Messages. I never responded. But I never blocked her, either. Let her stew. Let her wonder. One day, she showed up unannounced again, wearing a hoodie and jeans, holding a tray of lemon bars. You always loved these, she said, forcing a smile. I didn't let her in. I stood in the doorway and waited. She looked past me into the house. Her smile faded. You painted. Yeah. You got new furniture. Yep. She hesitated. It looks different. It is. She swallowed. I was hoping we could maybe start fresh. Talk about us. I looked at her, really looked. The woman I once planned to grow old with. The woman who shattered me and expected me to glue myself back together for her convenience. And all I said was, there is no us, Aaron. Not anymore. Her face crumbled. I made a mistake. I know, I said. But I didn't. And then I closed the door. I stood there for a long time afterward, back against the wood, breathing, heart pounding, not because it hurt, but because I felt free, really, truly free. And in that silence, I smiled. Because what Aaron didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that I'd been preparing something. Something final. A quiet, devastating truth. A truth that would turn the tables and expose everything. All I needed was the right moment to pull the trigger. And that moment was closer than she thought. By the time autumn rolled around, I wasn't the same man Aaron left. Not even close. The mornings no longer felt heavy. I'd wake up, stretch in my new sheets, drink my coffee in silence, and feel light. I kept up with the gym, landed a contract that paid more than my entire Q2 earnings. And I wasn't living in the past anymore. I wasn't checking my phone every hour, waiting for her next what if text. I'd stopped reacting. Now I was planning. Because while Aaron was still orbiting me like a lost moon begging to be pulled back into my gravity, I'd already built a world where she no longer existed. But I wasn't going to just let her drift off peacefully. No, she needed to understand what she did. Not through screaming, not through social media rants, but through cold, calculated consequences. And I had the perfect opportunity coming up. My cousin Rachel was getting married. A big, outdoor, Pinterest board type wedding out near Asheville. The kind of event where every extended relative crawled out of the woodwork. We weren't especially close, but she invited me early on, back when Erin was still finding herself with Bryce. I'd RSVP'd yes, not really planning to go at the time, but now? Now it was the perfect stage. Because Erin was going too. I found out from Mia, who said Rachel had invited her directly, and Erin apparently texted her the next day gushing about how excited she was to see everyone again. Of course she was. She thought she was still welcome. She thought I'd keep playing nice. But I had plans. And if I was going to make a statement, one she couldn't twist, one no one in my family could misunderstand, it had to happen then. Still, I wasn't about to make a scene. That's not me. What I am good at is control, precision, execution. So I started laying the foundation. First step? Let her keep thinking I was on the fence. I responded to one of her texts for the first time in weeks. Just a simple, hope you're doing okay. The floodgates opened. She texted back in seconds. Carson, thank you. That means so much. I've been thinking about you constantly. Maybe after the wedding we can talk properly. I let the message sit unread for 2 days. Then replied. Maybe. That, maybe, lit a fire under her. I could tell. Suddenly, she started reaching out more. Voice notes. Apologies. Screenshots of poems she said reminded her of us. One even said, I saw a couple today, and I couldn't stop thinking about how we used to be. I miss being your person. It was all so performative. So hollow. But useful. Because while she was busy imagining our reunion under twinkle lights and acoustic covers of Ed Sheeran songs, I was preparing the final blow. Step 2. I reached out to Lila again, Bryce's ex. We'd stayed in touch, exchanging the occasional check-in. She was sharp, kind, and still pretty angry about how Bryce had discarded her. When I told her what I was planning, she didn't hesitate. "I'll help," she said. "Just tell me what you need." I did. She sent me everything. Photos of Bryce with other women, even during his time with Erin. Screenshots of texts where he bragged about how gullible Erin was. Even a few messages where he'd talked about moving on soon, since the novelty's wearing off. It was damning, ugly, raw. But it wasn't just the Bryce angle I wanted to expose. It was everything. Because Erin didn't just hurt me. She tried to reframe the narrative. Tried to play the victim, the wounded bird who needed healing. She'd poisoned my family against me. Let them believe I was distant, unloving, responsible for her leaving. And while some of them had started seeing the truth, thanks to Mia, others still looked at me with quiet judgment, as if I was the reason things had fallen apart. So, I decided to give them a show. And I wasn't going alone to that wedding. I'd met someone. Her name was Elena. We'd crossed paths at the gym, believe it or not. She worked in marketing, had this laugh that made you forget your problems, and an honesty I wasn't used to. We weren't serious, just dinners, workouts, occasional late-night drives. But we clicked, and she knew everything. I told her about Erin, the cheating, the divorce papers waiting in my desk drawer. I didn't hide any of it. I didn't want secrets this time. When I explained what I was planning for the wedding, Elena tilted her head and smirked. "So let me get this straight," she said, sipping her smoothie. "You want me to be your revenge date?" "Not revenge," I said carefully. "Clarity." She grinned. "Then I'll wear red." Step 3. I gathered evidence. Not just Bryce's texts and photos, but Erin's lies. See, after she left, I started digging. I went back through her old emails. Found dozens of little deceptions. Messages where she flirted with Bryce before she ever mentioned needing space. Old drafts of emails she never sent, journaling her doubts about me. Some dated 6 months before she left. She hadn't drifted. She'd planned her escape, and she wanted sympathy on the way out. I printed everything. Highlighted timestamps. Made it clean. Organized. Not to show everyone, but just in case. I also had Mia and Tasha on standby. They'd agreed to keep a close eye on the vibe at the wedding, especially if Erin tried to corner me. "Don't worry," Mia said. "We'll block like a defensive line." And then came the final piece. The divorce papers. I'd been holding off, waiting for the right moment. Waiting to see if Erin would show any shred of honesty or ownership. She hadn't. So I had them updated. Fast-tracked. Filed for delivery. They'd arrive at her door the day after the wedding. Perfect timing. And just like that, the setup was complete. The night before the wedding, I slept better than I had in months. No anxiety. No what-ifs. Just quiet determination. Elena picked me up the next morning in a navy dress with gold heels and a red clutch. When I opened the door, her eyes widened. Well, she said. "You clean up nice." Likewise. We drove with the windows down. Music low. The kind of energy that makes you feel like the main character in a movie right before the climax. The venue was gorgeous. Wooden archways, fairy lights strung between trees, tables with rustic name tags, and artisanal everything. People were milling about, hugging, laughing, posing for pictures. Then I saw her. Erin. She was standing near the drink table in a pale green dress, holding a mimosa, laughing at something Rachel's brother said. Her hair was curled, her makeup perfect. She looked calculated. And then she saw me. Her face changed instantly. A mix of shock, curiosity, and something else, fear? She wasn't expecting me to look good, confident, free. She definitely wasn't expecting Elena. I watched her eyes scan the woman on my arm. The hand I placed lightly on Elena's back. The way we walked in sync. She took a sip of her drink, then started toward me. But I turned away before she could get close. Guided Elena to a group of cousins I hadn't seen in years. Hugged them. Caught up. Laughed. And I could feel Erin watching me. Later, she tried again. This time, with a smile. "Carson," she said softly, approaching like she thought we were still co-stars in some broken rom-com. I looked at her, expression calm. "Erin." She glanced at Elena, clearly fishing for an introduction. Elena stuck out her hand with a smile that could slice through glass. "Hi, I'm Elena." Aaron took it, hesitated. Aaron. There was an awkward silence. Then Aaron turned to me. You look good. Thanks. Another pause. She lowered her voice. Can we talk? Alone? I smiled politely. Maybe later. And just like that, I walked away. Because she didn't get to pull me aside like she still had access. She didn't get to own the narrative anymore. I mingled, danced, ate overpriced mini quiches, and drank sparkling cider. Took pictures with Elena beneath the lantern-lit trees. And every time I caught Aaron looking over, she wasn't smiling anymore. She was unraveling. But I wasn't done. As the reception wound down, I passed Mia the envelope. Inside, a printed copy of the voice memo from Bryce, dated photos of him with another woman just 3 weeks after Aaron moved in, and a note. For when she tells you I ruined everything. Mia nodded and slipped it into her purse. And the next morning, Aaron's doorbell would ring. A manila envelope. Signed, sealed, and delivered. Inside, the full divorce filing. No warning. No conversation. Just a signature line and a clean break. But I didn't need to be there for that moment. Because my part was done. Or so I thought. What I didn't realize, what none of us realized, was that Aaron wasn't going to go quietly. Not this time. The morning after the wedding, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the window and Elena softly humming as she made coffee in the kitchen. The smell of fresh espresso mingled with the quiet peace of knowing the storm had finally passed. Or so I thought. I didn't check my phone right away. I didn't need to. I already knew what was coming. The divorce papers had been delivered. Certified mail. Signature required. I timed it precisely. Saturday delivery, 10:15 a.m. sharp. I imagined Aaron opening the door, still in her post-wedding outfit, maybe even hungover, expecting something romantic. A note. A letter. One of those dramatic gestures she secretly wished for. Instead, she'd find legal documents and my signature. Cold. Final. Clear. I finally checked my phone around 11 a.m. 15 missed calls. 16 texts. 1 voicemail. Carson, what is this? You're divorcing me? Just like that? After everything we talked about? After everything I confessed to you? I thought we were making progress. I thought you were forgiving me. How could you blindside me like this? I need to talk to you. Please. Call me. No. Not this time. No more pity. No more second chances. No more letting someone walk back into my life just because they missed the comfort of being loved unconditionally. Erin didn't miss me. She missed being chosen. She missed being safe. But I was done being her emotional retirement plan. I blocked her number. Not out of anger, but out of peace. And that's when the real unraveling began. Because Erin didn't take the quiet exit I gave her. She started making noise. It began with the group chats, messages sent to our mutual friends, cousins, even neighbors. Long, emotional paragraphs about how I was refusing to communicate, how I'd punished her for one mistake, and how I had set her up to humiliate her. But what she didn't know was that I had already shared the full story, with receipts. See, before I blocked her, I sent one final message. Just 3 words. Ask your sister. Because Erin's older sister, Paige, was one of the only people who saw through her. Paige never liked Bryce. She'd told me, once, that Erin had a pattern of jumping ship when things got too normal. That she thrived on drama, on chaos, on chasing attention. Paige had reached out to me weeks earlier, apologizing for how the family had treated me. I knew something was off, she said. She started rewriting history before she even left. So I sent her everything. The emails, the texts, the photos, the recordings, the divorce papers, even the wedding day footage where Erin tried to corner me while I calmly walked away. Paige sent it all to the family. No commentary, no drama, just the truth. And it spread like wildfire. Erin's attempts to control the narrative collapsed in a matter of hours. My mom called me, crying, apologizing. She said she felt ashamed for ever doubting me. That she had no idea how manipulative Erin had been. That she believed me now. Mia was livid. I want to drive to her place and scream in her face, she said. I told her it wasn't worth it. The truth had done the job. But I wasn't finished. Because there was still one person who had skated through this whole ordeal without any consequences. Bryce, the man who treated my marriage like a sport, who laughed about taking another man's wife, who left Erin the moment the thrill wore off, and probably moved on to the next already. He thought he won. He didn't know I'd been quietly collecting information. Remember Lila, Bryce's ex? Turns out, She still had access to some of Bryce's business emails. See, Bryce ran a boutique fitness company. Bryce built, or something equally arrogant. Lila had helped him set up the LLC years ago, and she still had access to some of the administrative back-end, which he never bothered to update. Inside those emails, gold. Turns out, Bryce had been using personal client data for shady promotions, selling emails to third parties, offering VIP training packages with fake discounts. He was skirting just enough legal lines that, if you weren't looking closely, you wouldn't notice. But I was looking closely. With Lila's help, we compiled a full dossier. Dates, screenshots, bank trails, testimonies from old clients. It wasn't enough for jail, but it was enough to ruin his brand. I sent it anonymously to every gym owner in a 30-mile radius. Then I posted a detailed review on every platform I could find. Yelp, Google, Reddit, even LinkedIn. And the final touch? I tipped off a local fitness YouTuber who ran a series on shady gym practices. He covered it in a video titled, "The Fitness Fraud Next Door, How Bryce Built Lies." Within 2 weeks, Bryce's client numbers plummeted. He shut down his social media accounts. And, according to Lila, he tried to launch a rebrand, only to be laughed out of 2 different gyms when they recognized his name. Poetic, really. But the real revenge wasn't in the public takedowns. It was in the silence that followed. No more noise from Aaron. No more ego from Bryce. Just a slow, suffocating stillness as they watched their stories unravel and their reputations quietly decay. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to gloat. I just moved forward. Elena and I stayed close. We didn't rush into anything serious. Both of us had our scars. But we supported each other. Shared meals. Walked the dog. Built something simple and honest. The kind of relationship that doesn't need drama to feel alive. My career took off. I landed a long-term retainer with a client in Chicago. Traveled more. Spoke at a tech conference. Bought a motorcycle. Something Aaron had always said was too reckless. Funny how all the things she once dismissed were the very things that made me feel alive again. And then, one day, months later, I got a letter in the mail. From Aaron. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a handwritten note. 2 pages. She apologized again. Said she was in therapy. That she realized she'd spent her whole life trying to be adored instead of being honest. That she understood if I never wanted to speak to her again. She ended it with, "You were never the villain. I was just too selfish to admit I'd become one." I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Not out of sentiment, but because it was over. All of it. The heartbreak. The shame. The questions. I had found peace, not through revenge, but through clarity. And as I sat on my porch that evening, sipping a beer, watching the sun set over the quiet street, I realized something. She wanted closure, but I'd already built a new beginning. And this time, I was no one's second choice. She walked out chasing freedom, never realizing I'd already given it to myself.